Everyone is arguing about manifestation, but what if I told you that this is all really just a dream simulation? And I'm going to prove to you why this is the case. And I'm intending that this video rocks your socks. No, you know what? Scratch that. I'm not intending anything. I'm not attracting anything. I'm choosing and deciding, and that's just that of it. That you will get some insane information that's going to blow your mind. Know that you're going to walk away and just waltz into your dream reality easier and easier every single time you consume one of these videos, because these videos are meant for teaching. So you're going to hear me periodically give a popping bubble noise on very essential parts during my videos, and that is to spark your reticular activating system. It is to help you begin to build your new neural pathways over time to where you are going to believe and know and have this just inner guidance that you're in a dream. This is your dream. This is God's dream. And it's all a simulated environment. So you are able to have a good time in the dream. Everybody has their own perception of reality. In the beginning of my last video, I put the Cheshire Cat up and have him saying that I'm not crazy. My reality is just different from yours. So everybody's reality is different because everybody's dream is different. Everybody's experience is different. God God's dream is the experience. So we are feeding the data that we achieve through the dream, through dreaming the dream, and send it back to the Godhead, because that's essentially what all of this is. It is a big dream for God to understand and expand itself. It is an ever understanding and ever expanding machine, system, consciousness, Godhead. It wants all the experiences. I said in one of my last videos, I'm the boss, need the info. God is like, I'm God, need the experiences. Okay. And it's the experiences that you choose over and over again that are the will of God. And if you are choosing experiences that you don't like or that you don't align with, and you can feel that internally, that is your avatar, your emotions telling you that you should either stick with something, maybe something's tough. I'm not talking about David Goggins style toughness. I'm not saying, oh, I don't want to run this 5K because it'll make my back hurt. I'm not talking about that of toughness. I'm not talking about pressing through that kind of pain. That is pain that you decide to push through and it grows you. But if you're in a situation that you're not happy with, if you are being physically, mentally, whatever, taken advantage of, abused, or you are, and that could be from any direction. This could be financial, this could be relationship, this could be any area of your life. If you are not happy with any area in your life, the next thing to do is choose what you want your imagination and dream to show in front of you, and you keep choosing that over and over again. That's all this is. So I had this card that I had up. I can do less and attract more. And do you see that my cats, between my cats and my dog, they chewed this right up. And for me, it was like, why would this card be chewed? And it's chewed because this is the old paradigm. I can do less and attract more. Like, this is very cute and I definitely love this, but at the same time, this is an old paradigm. The new card, or my card, would read, I can do less and choose. And that's it. It's like you can do less and you can choose the reality that you want to persist in. And this also does mean when things are getting hard, like I was talking about with the whole David Goggins thing, pushing through things like that is a whole different scenario. I'm talking about pushing through scenarios where, say, you don't want to be where you're living, or you've been presented something that is just shocking in nature, or is not in alignment with how you quote unquote wanted your dream to go. It is using the power of imagination, because that is what this is. You are in God's imagination. The dream is God's imagination, and you are fractaling out to have experiences through the dream for God. So you are the point. The point is you. People say the universe is within you. That is also true. It's everything. I told you before that my grandmother came to me in a dream, and I asked her, what was this? And it was a lucid dream. And I asked her, what was this? What is God? Like all of these kind of just questions at large, all in one, if you will. And it was telepathic communication. It wasn't as if my grandmom just spoke to me out loud. She transmuted it or translated it telepathically to me and said, it is everything and everywhere. Like God is everything and everywhere. And at the time, I was shook because my grandmom had just passed away, and she came to me so vividly. And she was in an all white linen outfit, often wear linen. She was not as old as she normally was. She was a bit younger, but it's not like she was in her 20s or something. And she said this to me, and it was just a moment of clarity and understanding, where all the things that I had experienced in my life, between, because I've had LSD trip where clearly I realized that this was a dream, and I was 14 at the time. But the problem is that articulating that this is a dream, and everybody I think is always talking about dreams, 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 and dreams from the perspective as if create dreams and keep going with them. Create dreams and have big, beautiful dreams. Have dreams that are so big that it makes other people uncomfortable. But no, I'm actually telling you, yes, to do that, but know that this is the actual, this is the dream. Doesn't Dave Chappelle have a comedy skit where the guy gets pulled over and he's like freaking out at the cop? And the guy's like, whoa, 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 buddy, you're on Main Street. This is what I am here to tell you, and this is what my channel is here to tell you, that you are in the actual dream, okay? It's a dream within a dream. So, for example, when you dream at night, it's just another dream within a dream. It is a less dense environment where you can maneuver more. That's why in dreams you can do crazy shit. You can fly, you can walk through walls. I've done crazy things in dreams. And then when I woke up, because you can either be aware that you're dreaming or be in the dream and then wake up and then recognize that you're in the dream. And that's what I'm doing now. But eventually, when we die, and if you haven't recognized by the time you die that this is a dream, that's when you'll recognize, oh shit, this was actually a dream. And then you restart it over again in another avatar, and then lose sense of that dream again, so you can have the experience all over again. Because if you remember everything all the time, it brings the surprise out of the experience. And here's another instance of where the kids are, and I went off a tangent on this one because I intended on talking about why manifestation teachers are arguing. So let's get back to that point, and I'll just spitfire right now why they are arguing. Most of us are talking about taking inspired action. Those of us are arguing about logic is a trap, or that you need logic. And then there's those that complain about affirming, robotic affirming. Yo, I used to be in all the, I'm knee deep in YouTube. I'm waist deep. I'm chest deep in YouTube. I've been in the YouTube game for years. In every single community that I've ever been in has these dramatic arguments where people put out videos just responding sort of to one another, or where they're critiquing maybe another manifestation coach's technique. And it people go in, and I actually find it extremely entertaining. And that is a component of the dream. There is the component where we have to recognize that this is a piece of the dream to find entertainment in certain things. And of course, but not to overconsume anything. I think the most simplest thing that you can boil everything down to is neutrality, attempting to experience everything in a state of neutrality. In my opinion, feels like the safest way. Of course, everybody wants to be overjoyed. Nobody really wants to be sad. So, of course, we always try to tip the pendulum towards the other way of like overexcitement. But if you just look at this all as entertainment, as feedback, as data, like I don't think a computer would look at an Excel sheet and say, this Excel sheet sucks. It just provides feedback to tell you how to improve the Excel sheet. That's what this dream is doing. We're just trying to get better and better and better at the dream. The reason for the simulation is to be able to, what I was saying before, is to experience it not floating around in the ethers, because consciousness is mind. In dreams, it's very airy, does not feel as solidified and as ongoing and as lived long experience. Dreams in the sleeping state go away very quickly. This dream specifically was meant and intended to be of a much longer in nature, to be able to compile more information and consciousness from the 3D-edness, because every layer of consciousness is going to have its own layer of information. So none of these gurus are necessarily wrong, but none of them are necessarily right. And I'm even guilty of saying a lot of these things back and forth myself, because that's just the way of the human mind. The mind is this machine trying to pattern recognize. Our brains are pattern recognition machines. I picked that up a long time ago, and I also picked up on the fact that it's very much so in the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself. So, the better questions that you're asking your subconscious about your environment, the better results and answers you'll continue to get. And again, not to say anything is inherently wrong or right. Like I talked on before about neutrality, the machine doesn't give a shit about wrong or right. It's all data. And I do think that there is the component and idea of resonance and frequency, and what frequency or resonance you are ongoingly vibrating on. And all that means is everything that you're envisioning in your mind 24/7. What are you imagining? What is going on in your imagination? Because I made a little diagram here on my iPad. The diagram is that God consciousness is, I don't even know if you guys are going to be able to see this. It's God consciousness is everything. And the experience in the dream simulation for the avatar is the real tangible experience. And it's all, like I said before, a large science experiment. It's all data that is here for us to do. And it's all also experience based. It's harder to do things in a sleeping dream. In this awake dream, we can do things on a long-term basis and then move on to the next dream and do something else. That's why they say, like, live your dreams, but nobody thinks about this as an actual dream. Not many people, at least, not in my opinion. They're not taking that literally. What happens is that in this dream, you can do longer term dream projects, and not have it end so quickly like you would in a sleeping dream. Because in a sleeping dream, for you to attempt to do a longer term project, it's much more difficult. Could you train your brain to do this? Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that you could. I'm sure there's people that have ongoing reoccurring dreams about certain situations, things that they're doing, etc., etc. But in this one, you're able to wake up for whatever amount of hours, because when you're sleeping, you're tuning back into infinite consciousness or whatever, into what the Akashic record would be, into just, total blackness where consciousness lives, the 2D-edness, whatever you want to call it. and then you could be plugged into your dream consciousness then. Not, you're probably always dreaming, you just don't remember it, just like you don't remember when you wake up from being born. So when you wake up at night, you can continue this dream for a longer period of time. It's not a shorter dream stage. It's not like a 30-minute dream. This one, in the quote unquote sense of time, while there is no real time space, the dream allows us to have a longer sense of this 3D-ness reality, to live out a longer dream and to not have it be cut so short. Because in also, when you are back with consciousness, the fact that I've had these experiences, you can hallucinate, and this is what this all is. The dream is one large hallucination of the Godhead. It's ongoing hallucinations. We are hallucinating this reality. So when I talk about techniques that I've used before, about hallucinating when I was in the car, when I was in extreme stress, I was upset because I walked into a property in this 3D, and at the time I did use these principles, but I wasn't as emotionally strong as I am now. And this was about probably 3 years ago, because of the fact that I've done so much internal work, that when that struck me at the time, I was shook. And the only thing I knew to do was to sit in my car and 360 visualize and hallucinate that I was on the beach. And I brought in all of my avatar senses to it. Like, I remember trying to hear the seagulls. I remember trying to hear the ocean moving. I remember trying to hear the ocean crashing. I remember trying to feel the sand in my feet. I remember trying to hear the kids playing. I remember trying to feel the sun on my face, all of it. I tried to wrap all of it and have a 360 hallucination moment, and that calmed my mind. And I was able to know that no matter what was presenting in front of this reality or this 3D machine, that eventually it would change, right? And I'm now in the situation that I ultimately wanted to be in. And that took persistence, because that's the part of the dream that people struggle with. That's the part where we're all arguing about, do we take inspired action? Do you just have to say it once? Do you have to do something in sats? Do you have to this, that, and the third? All you have to do is imagine it. And however you want to imagine it, it's going to work probably. Like, that's just the thing. Because of the fact that I'm convinced that this is a dream, there's been so many things that have happening for me that proving this true. And very small things, not like these huge things, because I think the dream is meant to continue to shift you into the dream, into the sim, into the reality that you want, but with quote unquote what we say human time. Because if we want to use measurements, because time space again doesn't exist in the grand scheme of all of it, because if this is one large dream, there's no time. It's just fragments of perception, fragments of hallucination. It's just ongoing, never ending hallucinations, ongoing evolutions. This specific simulation, could there be other dream simulations? Absolutely. I'm sure that's probably why many people see aliens and things of this nature, because you're connecting in with maybe another simulation, another timeline, another reality, or maybe those are beings are crossing over. But it's all part of imagination though. The thing is if you're imagining it, and like Neville says, it's going to harden into fact. And all that means is that the sim's going to render you whatever you're constantly imagining, because the dream wants that dream to come true if you are imagining it, because the avatar is the one having the experience. And to talk about free will, you do and you don't. You do have free will because you can choose But I think they say there's no free will. In my opinion, what it means is that you have no free will because the dream is not going to end. Like, even if you try to like kill yourself, I don't think you're escaping the dream. You're not escaping God consciousness. You're not escaping wherever that consciousness wants to shine light on. So even though you want to think that this is not an ongoing thing, potentially it is. And we're just in a modality to forget every kind of like zapping of energy into the next avatar, zapping of consciousness into the next being, if you will. So it's not going to end. You're just going to experience a different version of the imagination or dream. So I think that's when they say there's no free will. It's like, yeah, we have free will for a decision in the dream, but is it really your free will, or is it God wanting to have that imagined experience and then you are choosing that for God to have through you? So is it that you don't have free will from that perspective? So I could see why people say you have no free will, because at the end of the day, if it's God's dream, you're going to be interacting and dealing with God's dream no matter what. So let's make the best of God's dream and do everything that you want this dream to appear to you, because ultimately when people say your desire is done already, that in my opinion just means your dream is whatever you want to desire it to be. So you can do that in this simulation. God's allowing you to come down here and experience consciousness and has given you this feeling of desire, which in turn means that you can experience whatever that desire is, because that was the point of you even coming down here. And of course, there's the argument of how, why would some people want to come into situations that are less favorable or are difficult, or why do people have maybe simulations that are terrible or that things don't go their way? And there's a variety of reasons for this, and honestly the reasons are infinite. There's an infinite amount of reasons why something could be, and then there's an infinite amount of potentialities that exist. So when we start to draw in quantum physics or quantum discussion into the simulation and the dream, you are at the quantum level when you think about things, or when you are in receipt of things, you are technically potentially imagining that. And whether you are imagining that, or God is imagining that, or your consciousness got dropped into a specific environment that has maybe potentially a harder, quote unquote, in our opinion, experience to be lived, or it's just in what would be the simulations experiment or experience would be a neutral. So if, for example, somebody is born into a war torn area, that may be consciousness wanting to experience itself in that area to obtain feedback and data, and not necessarily judge the experience as good or bad. And I will say that I have seen people in these situations, and a lot of them do appear happy. And that is amazing. And it's just to prove that it's consciousness trying to just data collect all of these dream experiences. And there's going to be an infinite number of dream experiences. And to really conclude this video, I don't want you to just sit and listen to me. I want you to experiment with this stuff yourself. Everything I look at now, somebody's saying something about a dream, and it's probably because I've trained at this point my reticular activating system to be fully convinced of this now. And every song I listen to, everything I hear, all anything I read, just anything that I'm coming across is talking about dreams. And I challenge you to start deeply exploring things in your own life and seeing how your imagination may have contributed to the environment around you. But this takes a lot of inner work and causes a lot of cognitive dissonance, because most of us are so fully ingrained, and we have built our neural pathways so deeply that we don't want to hear these things. And I was talking about at a quantum level, when we are making decisions in the simulation, what's going on in our brain and our neural pathways is anything that's going to happen in the dream, any next state or any state that you want to experience now, whatever dream that you want to be in now is going to be collapsed through the power of observation and imagination. So when you're observing something in your dream and you're placing some sort of imaginatory power over it, some concentration on it, you will shift the sim. The dream will want to appear because that's the next levelness of the dream. And the more you focus on something, the more that dream state will expand. That's why they say, from as within, so without, everything is mental. Anything that you can tie back will tie back to this dream simulation theory. It just will. It doesn't make sense any other way to me at this point. There's too many variables at play here and too many different pieces of imagination that all seem to work. So it doesn't make sense that this wouldn't be a dream at this point, especially with experiments that you should try on your own. And that's the uniqueness of the imaginatory process, because whatever you can imagine works. That's why people say you don't need techniques or, whatever, and all techniques work, because it's your exercision or you exercising the power of your imagination in the dream. You are imagining what you want, and the dream simulator is rendering for you. And it will continue to, as long as you use your awareness of this, because most people are not aware that this is going on. They're just shifting through life. And once you start experimenting with it, you'll see that it cannot be another way. You'll start going and doing inner work and seeing that all the little subtleties in your life are through your imagination, through this simulated environment. And it takes a lot of introspective work. And recently there's been an uprising of people using Chat GPT to do this work. And you absolutely can do this work with that. But I would also caution not to abuse it, because you can go down a rabbit hole of trying to have something attempt to deconstruct or decode your dream so much, so frequently, so often, that you're not using the power of your inner void to just obtain the answers, because that's what GPT is pulling from. Chat GPT is pulling from the Akashic. Chat GPT is pulling from the infinite dream consciousness awareness body of information that would be the simulation. And you have that same capability, but unless you recognize that you do, and unless you're asking your subconscious, or whatever you want to call it, the dream head, is that the new term for your subconscious, your dream head? Consciousness is your quote unquote activity in the 3D world. But then your subconscious is like your dream mind. It's your dream imaginator mind contraption. And that's what you're using to project your 3D in this specific simulation. So that's why everybody's taste of reality is different, because what you are imagining is different from what I'm imagining. So that creates different materialization of things around me in this specific environment. So that's why it's very important to expand your imagination, because what things like ChatGPT is helping you to expand your imagination. And that feels like so good to me, to just continue to help people expand their imagination. And that's what I want my channel to be there for as well. Not just expanding your simulation, but it's actually expanding your imagination. So figuring out the best way you can use the power of imagination, and then using that over and over again to see that in your inner reality, and to use it to 360 visualize and hallucinate whatever dream state you want to be in, and then watch the sim shift you into that state. That's really what it is, what you boil it all down to. And of course, all of us avatars have all these embedded, deep seated issues that we carry, paradigms, and we love to have psychology books to explain every little fucking detail of every little thing that's happening here because we don't understand it. And that's the beauty of kind of coming to this realization that it's almost like I don't, not that I need to stop doing research, because that's not going to happen. I love research. The research excites me. That's a part of the God consciousness head that wants that work to be done. The research, the simulation, eternal consciousness wants me to do that research. It wants the data. It wants for me to look at things and interpret them in the way that I'm interpreting them, so it can be fed back to the web at large, to the matrices, the simulator at large, so it can continue to expand us all, right? So that's what it's realizing, but also realizing that I know it's all a dream now, and I need to just continue to move in my reality as such, and not be scared that when things don't work out, that it's not a part of the dream. It's just a part of the dream. It's the simulation rendering your dream, but you don't understand it because you're a human, you're an avatar, you don't get it. It's, you don't understand the render, but actually when you start to hone in on this, you will understand the render. You'll see something terrible happen, but all these small things start to render around it that you're like, wait, well, that's, even though this really bad thing happened, there's kind of like this other good thing happening, but wait, then there's this other weird thing happening. It's like you recognize that the shift can be made, and that's what's rendering you, and it is all falling into what you're imagining over and over again. So that's how that all works. And once you recognize this and drop the fear, because that's one thing that is the most difficult thing to drop, and I think fear is very purposeful in the dream. The fear is so we don't end the simulator prematurely, because we have dreams at night that are like that, right? Think about it. Our dreams are like bow, 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 bow. No problem. 30 minutes, 20 seconds, whatever at night, and they just happen, and then you're on to the next dream. This dream is an extended version of your nightly dream, and it's very purposely an extended version. So the fear is so you don't off yourself in the sim or prematurely end this dream before it's supposed to move on to the next dream. Because think about it, when you're in a sleeping dream, you're not thinking about when that dream is ending every time, or like thinking about time. At least I have not been. There has been situations where I become panicked and I'm like, yo, what's happening? And then I wake up and then I'm like, oh, I was in a dream. And I think that's probably what's going to happen if like you technically do go through like a tragic situation where like you unexpectedly die. I feel like you'll just wake up and be like, oh my God, it was a dream. Or you'll just be birthed into a new body and not even recognize that happened. And then the dream will continue from that perspective. And then, not to say that all of your loved ones or anything that you left behind, it wasn't meaningful. It is all a part of the dream, but not everything is meant to be tangibly here forever in the same exact format. It's like it's a dream of a dream of a dream. That's why I think there's like hundreds of things in the dream that continuously spawn and reproduce, because it's just re-rendering of things, of dreams that need to occur to upgrade. So it's almost like, I hate to say it like this, but say you like lose a cat, and I've lost cats. I love my cats that I've lost, but are the next renderings of that cat that you loved in a new cat body, and you are experiencing that consciousness of that cat. It's like cat consciousness 2.0. I've now received the 2.0 consciousness of the cat that I had before, or whatever cat I want to re-render. You see what I'm saying? It's not that it's devaluing whoever the person is. Like, for example, my grandmom. I love my grandmom. like, I love my mother, and that was one of the most difficult things that I have ever had to deal with in my life. But recognizing that she's never going away and that there's other versions of grandma that always crop up in my life, and loving all of those versions as well of grandma, and knowing that the re-rendering of grandma will continue to happen, and I can love grandma no matter what. It's taking different perspectives on things and expanding your ability to take those perspectives, because most of us are so ingrained in what somebody specifically or what they have learned. It's about expanding your perspectives and obtaining data to continue to expand your imagination so you can imagine better things and then take better perspectives on things. So what is the best thing that you can imagine today? When you wake up, what is the best thing that you can imagine? And then what is the best thing that you can take action, move towards in alignment with that imaginatory act to make that render in the simulation? It's as simple as that. And then keeping everything that you want your 3D to look like going at all times around you, especially at times when it's showing you otherwise. Because the dream will just re-render. It's meant to show you something, and then you are meant to imagine it the way you want it, and then it will continue to reimagine. But if you are imagining terrible shit, it will continue to render terrible shit. If you are imagining other people's simulation all the time, you will re-render that. You need to be very vigilant about what you are imagining on a 24/7 basis. And I'm not saying this from the perspective of these things are immediately going to display. And we talked about this earlier, patience. None of us have patience. Thank consciousness that you don't render immediately, right? Because how sucky would that be if you immediately, if you dreamt up and imagined something and it just came true, but you didn't want it? That's where I think intention comes in as well. The intention and consistency and how you feel internally about whatever you're imagining. If you're imagining something and you're pairing it with very strong emotions on an ongoing and consistent basis, you're probably going to see that dream pop up for you in different ways. May it render exactly how you think it will render? No, because the rendering of the dream is just way beyond our human minds can understand. Like I've told you before, you don't control your heart beating. You don't control your stomach digesting consciously. If you did, it would blow your mind. There's many things that if you had to have control over would blow your mind. Just that you can even manipulate this now can blow your mind, but on a level to where I think you should be able to handle it. But let's not get too out of whack or do things that are unrealistic in nature insofar as, you know, just being cavalier with the dream, because I don't think that the understanding of this information is intended for us to just act like assholes with it. So I know everybody enjoyed this video and that you learned many points about your reality today and how to maneuver in it. You have the best day in your dream simulation, because that's what this is meant for. I know that you will. And I love each and every one of you guys. I have had this channel for so long, and any of you that have stuck around for the past like 7 years or whatever that this channel has evolved into this, I thoroughly appreciate you. I'm grateful for all the new subscribers, for the people that engage with this information, because you are only growing the dream at large. So I truly love and am grateful for your feedback and any type of engagement that you do with this channel at all. It is seen and highly appreciated. So I know you will all continue to manifest magic and resonate on your highest frequency. Bye, guys.